in his tank.
It's a rather large car.
Yeah.
He's not dressed for this evening, though.
That's all they're doing.
Or the gold.
Who said that?
Really?
That's what he's promoting.
He's promoting.
Pushing it. Yes.
Oh, yep, sorry. I do tend to expand.
You're allowed.
Oh, this is good.
So we're running. Sure.
Oh, you brought checks for us, thank you.
Mine.
Nice. I was gonna get a
Give
tip.
yourself one out. Yeah, I've got the actual time. The clock is.
Right on.
See, it can be.
That's select board time.
There we go, we got 1 minute.
Quick,
Okay.
59.
There you go.
What's Steve Snyder? He's the director of evaluation.
Yes, we started this morning.
Oh, good.
While we're waiting, why don't we do a quick introductions? I think everybody knows everybody, but just to be sure.
Dave Schaefer.
Chris Ramsden,
Sue McKenzie?
Rich Brown,
Rusty Keith.
Tim Cook.
John Sadler.
Rush Kevo.
Steve Whitman.
Steve Schneider.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you all for coming. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Second?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for coming up.
No problem.
As I said in my email, we had a joint meeting. We'd really like to get the slides/forum presentation to a point where both groups are comfortable in the presentation and the data.
Okay.
And if we could, we'll give you that feedback quickly.
Okay.
I understand that we have budgetary constraints. I think our main concern is to get this presentation completed, and then figure out the next step, which would be to get it presented. But our main concern now is to get a finished product.
Okay.
Other comments?
As we go along,
No, just for the purpose of the meeting.
I think my understanding was that there were questions about clarifications with the slides. There was disagreement about the acceptability with some, and others felt it was fine. So that's what we're gonna work out here today.
Okay, so we'll go slide by slide. We're gonna go through them once, so everyone comment before we move on. And if we get too dug down in one slide, we're gonna move on, okay? Because we're gonna wrap this up before, okay?
Sounds good.
First slide, I'll open it up. We'll go around so that we, any comments?
No.
That's a very controversial one.
Yeah. Is it controversial? It doesn't really show us anything that we're really talking about, other than that. It's a good introduction, right?
Okay.
Right.
I just want to key on the word analysis, because I don't feel we get there in the later slides, okay? So we're gonna move to the next slide unless anyone objects. So in this, you basically are setting up an agenda. I wouldn't use the word tonight because we may be presenting it during the day, or it may be sent, so it might be called agenda, or it might be called index.
Overview or-
Yep, okay. There is no actual overview of the study in the PowerPoint, so if there could be, that would be helpful, because we may be sending this to people, hard copy and email, and putting it up on the line, so to have people understand.
For that.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments on this slide, slide number 2? Okay. Slide number 3, I felt was redundant. It basically redoes slide number 1. Okay. So I'm not sure what this adds, and in looking for a brevity, this is a slide that I felt could be removed.
What do you both think?
So our thought was that we should explain, give an overview of the study. So this was, part of this is you're seeing slides and you have no idea what we're gonna say.
Right.
Right, so that's a little unusual. One way to look at this would be, this is a way where we could talk about what happened, what you asked for through the study. So you're saying, Chris, it's redundant in regards to the overview slide?
No, it's the first slide, it basically rehashed, it's
That's just
exactly.
a cover slide,
Yep.
that's what I would have up as people were coming in, but if you're sending it, it's a different thing. So the thought here was that this was an overview of the services provided, the study that you requested.
Which might be what you talked about in the second slide, needing,
Right, needing slides.
yeah, add an overview slide. Maybe this one just needs to be expanded a bit.
So as an example, in the notes section that I have, like just our notes, this would be about the process. It would be about the fact that we were working with the LCDC as well as the planning board. It would be about how we gathered data back in August with the department heads, with the school. It kind of runs through the regional and state data that we look to. It's an explanation, it's an overview. So I think as what Russ said, it could be that slide, that missing slide.
So, again, we haven't seen those comments, so that's hard to understand that behind the scenes, that's what you have and would be talking to. Will you send those comments as part of the final forum, so that if we do send it out, people can see those comments, this is what you did?
I guess that's why we're here, is to talk about this. It's highly unusual when you do a presentation to provide the words you're gonna say in the presentation ahead of time. But not knowing how you're gonna use this, and if that's important, let's talk about what should be bulleted on the notes section.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna do notes on all of the slides or not. I mean, one way to address it on this, I'm just thinking, one way to address it on this slide would be to have sub-bullets. You know, maybe get rid of the pictures and have sub-bullets. But if you're gonna want comments on all the slides, then that's a different story. But if you don't need comments on all the slides, you probably just put some of the notes in as bullets under the bullets.
Would having the video accomplish that? You would have all the comments,
Yes, if people can access the video.
right?
I think one of the problems we're having here is wanting to have something that we can send out, and the practical problem you guys face, which is, this is for you, this is a backdrop for you to do your presentation.
Right.
So, I guess one of the question is, how can we get the best of both worlds? Can we basically let them have the backdrop that they need, but we get something that we can either send, do what we want with.
I think as long as we have a link to the video to go along with it, that anyone that wants to can watch the video and go along using this is what normally happens usually with these type of things is you watch the video or if it's live, you're doing that, and then you have slides that you can go as you move along, so.
Right.
That's just kind of what usually happens, so.
Can I ask how you prepare yourselves for this presentation, or do you, when I've done these slides, then there is a note, PowerPoint allows you to have notes for your slides, so.
He's actually looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what he has.
So, is there something about those notes that they shouldn't be included in the packet?
No, it's fine, it's just, I can only speak for myself, I can't speak for the way you do it, but me typically,
Yeah.
when I know that something's like a forum is moving ahead, if we agree on the slide deck today and you decide you wanna do that, then I'll refine my notes.
Okay.
I won't read from them verbatim,
Yeah, no,
because
right.
it's boring,
It's a
and I
guide.
won't tend to put too much text up there, because it makes it too much for people to read, so they're not listening.
Right.
But typically I'll prepare them, and sometimes I won't even have them printed from here, I'll have them on a notebook, I'll have them broken down.
Oh, okay.
I don't usually provide the notes, usually provide the
I see.
oral presentation.
Okay,
And then we are open to discussion at that session as well, so for additional context.
Okay, I'll typically not have notes per se and comment on the slides as they come up.
Add
but then you're
context.
using the slide as bullet points for your thought
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you're not putting all the bullet points on your slide, then that's what the notes section of PowerPoint is typically
Yeah, I
used
mean,
for.
point is, I don't usually do notes per se.
Okay,
He knows the content and he
Yeah.
has a different practice than
I
me.
see.
Yeah.
So, to just sum it up, are people comfortable with, if we have a video, then we don't need to deal with this issue much?
I feel more comfortable if they were included, like they are, on the screen, so that if we send it out hard copy, it says, met with the LCDC and PB, stakeholder interviews, focus groups. So
Right.
someone who doesn't see the video would be able to read that.
Do you guys, is that agreeable to you? I mean,
What's-
it's sort of a little
It might just
flavor.
mean additional slides, cause to add all that to this slide
Right.
would
No,
not
no,
make
no,
sense.
no,
In the notes.
in the speaker notes, just to have sort of
You
your
know how you
bullet
can print,
points of things
like,
you're
just
gonna
like you
touch.
have, that's how we would send it out.
All right, as long as people don't think that's all I said.
You
We'll have the video.
You see sending out this presentation as opposed to showing the video.
I think all of the above, we gotta communicate this to everybody.
Right.
Some people aren't gonna be able to watch a video, they don't have a
Right.
laptop, they don't have.
And I'm thinking we can have presentations right here, several of
Sure.
them, as many of them as we
Right.
need, and have people come in here and watch it.
But I think to have that document, I mean, that document's gonna wanna live and we'll wanna look at it for at least a couple of years, so. To have their bullet points of what they're gonna talk about. I mean, not asking for full essays, I
Right.
don't wanna know every word you
No,
write.
I think that's fair. If it's just the
Okay.
bullet points, I think that's fair.
Got it.
Okay, I
Good,
think that
thank
helps
you.
us understand a little bit what's behind.
Should we talk about what some of those bullet points are as we go through these slides, so we can be clear if you think there's something else that should be added?
Yes.
Okay, so on this slide,
I'm gonna pull up the view so everyone can see them. Go ahead.
so on this slide, it would be an overview of the process, who we were meeting with.
On this one?
He's
Correct.
pulling it up, just a minute.
That's hard to see.
At least now, I can't make it.
No, that's fine.
But that
Yes,
shows.
but that's an example, he has the
So
bullet
it's-
points on the bottom,
to
which
give-
Oh, there
won't
you
be
go.
showing.
I like that, yeah, that's
Okay.
great.
So the bullet points that are on there now are who we were meeting with, the stakeholder interviews and focus groups, the data that was gathered and where from, town department heads in the school, regional and statewide data, checking in with all of you, the LCDC and the planning board through revisions, and now being in this forum to provide an overview and get feedback and answer questions. A little bit about the scope of the study, and how it allows us to look at municipal trends, and then any additional items that are identified that need further study. So kind of giving them an idea that what we've done, but that there are elements that may need additional investigation going forward.
Okay, I propose we move on.
Yep.
Yep.
Why don't you read your comments, because most people haven't seen
Sure,
this.
no
Good.
problem. So
Who gets it?
I can remember them, yeah. Russ is asking for a number. Do people agree with Russ? You don't have to.
A number?
He wants me to number the slides, which I can do.
Some of them are, some of them aren't, so it'd be great, I
I
made that
think
comment.
yours are numbered. I think that's
Oh,
why,
okay.
slide numbers. Do you like slide numbers overall?
Yes, please.
Okay, especially considering you're gonna use them with the notes pages. So on this one, this is just a summary slide of our look at existing land use and zoning. So you can see the big bullets that are up there. Those are some findings, some of which we provided in a Word document, which we had revisions that came back from all of you last summer. And then underneath, what I included in the notes section was a finding from the master plan. And I think this highlights some of the challenge that you have here in Lyme. You have two conflicting and important issues that are identified. One, maintaining the rural character, which is mentioned quite frequently as an issue facing Lyme, something that you're tuned into. And the second, this issue of property taxes, development and growth as an important issue. And so we wanted to flag that.
I think that about nails it, yeah.
Okay. Are there other points related to existing land use and zoning that we should make? Should we say anything about, we talk about the recently expanded commercial zone on Route 10. Talk about limited infrastructure, limited telecommunications. This is for those that aren't engaged in the conversations that you are and don't understand maybe the level of detail that you do about the land use pattern and the constraints to development.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I think the comments help everybody.
Okay.
Because all we looked at in the original meeting was the slides.
Right.
And to have this and to know that those are some of the points you're gonna be talking to is
Right.
helpful.
Okay.
Okay? I do have a comment about the available land zone for development. Later, and you get into more detail later in the slideshow, we don't have any idea as to whether we have more than average, or less than average. I don't think there's a comparison on that, it's just we have more than we had before.
Right, just because you expanded that zone.
I think there is a
Well, we
slide
can-
with the bars, the commercial, I thought there was,
It shows what we get for revenue, well, when we get to
Okay.
that slide. Okay? Any other comments on this slide?
There's one about communications. We are-
Telecommunications? Yeah.
Yeah, we are about to have a significant improvement
Okay.
in an entity called Lyme Fiber,
Okay, so
Which
that
is
was
going
talked about
to-
the first time we met.
which is due to be, I think, launched next year, to try and get every home in town connected.
Is that something worth adding here as an
I
update?
think so, yeah.
You might just put parentheses, Lyme fiber, most people will know.
Okay.
And if they don't, they can ask the question.
And there's emails that have been going out the last couple of weeks to the entire town.
Right.
And it's Lyme Fiber, all one word?
All one
Yeah.
word, yes. And just to set everybody's expectations, we're telling people spring of 2020.
2020,
2020.
for everybody being connected, or?
Pretty much, yes.
Really?
Yeah, you do all the hard work of running down the roads, doing all the polls.
Okay, I'm gonna keep us on track.
Okay.
Thank you. Don't get me started.
It's
No,
fun.
because that would've,
As one, just clarification on this, would it be fair to say limited telecommunications currently,
Yes.
Lyme Fiber, spring 2020?
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
okay.
I just had this map up thinking, it's not a stunning map, it's the map that I was able to get from David.
Mhm.
I'm not tied to it, but I thought to let people have a sense of where these zoned areas are.
And it would be fantastic if there were some color. I've already tried to edit the slide, I know you've probably tried too, and it's brutal, because you really can't tell what's what, and
Yes, you
you
can.
blow it up.
David can, if you want, I mean, he
Even
would,
David can add color?
yeah.
I can ask him to.
If it's available to,
Yeah.
in
So
the next.
maybe that commercial zone you could actually show,
Sure.
um, because
Yeah.
it's almost impossible.
And I'm sure what he did was, so it's easy to be replicated black and white.
Right.
But at some point, maybe Upper Valley could help with some new maps, because I think some new maps could really help.
Okay.
But I can talk with David about just making those commercial areas and mixed-use areas pop.
That would be great.
Okay.
Other comments on this slide?
All right. You're up.
Okay,
Some of your notes in the bottom here, you take this, some
Yeah,
are
okay.
what we took from one of the earlier versions.
yeah.
And some of them are direct copies of what's in the slide.
Yeah, the comments are almost repeating what's in the slide.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't love this slide, I thought it was sort of, I've been in consulting many years, I felt, and everybody knows that it's an analysis, it's, it's based on the data you're able to collect, but if people feel it adds value, speak now.
I would say for those in the audience who haven't been in consulting, it could be important. They don't understand how this stuff happens.
Yeah, I would say that my criteria is, asking you, is this gonna help you communicate to the public? And if that's gonna help you communicate to the public, then I'm for it.
Yeah, I think it does. It's not gonna take a lot of time to go through it. I think you're probably right. I mean, to a knowledgeable observer, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. But I think what it tries to do is set some parameters around it, the limitations of this kind of work.
I have a little issue with it in that it's called caveats. And then basically you get down to basically the questions are, which is what really is the main thing. It's not a caveat at all, it's what it is. And so it just seems to me that the title And that last, basically the questions don't really fit
You
together.
wanna call it background, right, change it to background?
Do you wanna make 2 slides out of it?
That's actually, that's what I would do, because
They can
basically the
make this
questions
into a
are,
Yeah, okay.
is probably the most important thing on
Okay.
there.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine,
Okay?
yep.
Next slide. Maybe combined with the slide you just created.
You mean the second half?
Yeah. Does that make sense to you?
I'm not so
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Well, you
yeah.
can, but I'm not so sure that's needed, because it's only gonna take you a few seconds with the one slide, and then you're really going to another whole kind of part of the presentation, so to me, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
This is a 2-second slide in my mind.
Yeah, exactly, that's sort of like a, okay, now we're gonna talk about
It's like a
this.
bridge. and-
Yeah, exactly.
And in
You got it.
communication theory, you need those bridges to kind of bring people along in the presentations.
Okay?
Wait, so, Steve making a note here.
So we'll replace this one with the previous new slide we just made.
No,
They're both agreeing that they like this.
Oh, you want it?
This is-
yeah, this stays and the other one gets broken in two.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
This has a lot of words in it, obviously. I think that, this is the note, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, I think then it's okay. Does anybody have any comment on it? Do you want numbers?
Well, before I saw the notes, the slide was perplexing,
Oh,
okay? So, as long as you cover all the notes so that people understand how you're drawing these,
okay.
how you're making that analysis,
Mm-hmm,
you know, what is significant demand.
mm-hmm.
You can understand why we didn't put that level of text up on the slide.
Totally get it, but I was looking for something in between, like the bullets.
I knew you were gonna
I
give
can
it a
add
tough
some
spot
bullets.
trying to.
We can add bullets. I can take some of these and turn them into bullets under the slide, on the slide.
I have a question, because Sue and I just went to this presentation a few days ago,
Yeah.
and the significant demand is not uniformly between all costs. It's much higher on the bottom half than it is in the top half.
Mm-hmm.
And, the real estate folks had all these
Yeah,
sales figures and
I
stuff
can, I
like
can
that.
certainly highlight that.
So that might want to be highlighted.
Particularly affordable, I'll get that in there somehow.
And you state the number, like, I think I was pretty impressed to hear that we need 5,000 new units.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah,
put
it's
the
right
numbers
here.
in.
5,540.
It's in there.
But that was
Yeah.
in, that was in
I'll
the
do,
earlier.
I'll do that as in the bullets.
Okay.
Uh,
Add bullets.
Bullets for numbers. Okay,
Okay?
yes.
Any other comments on the slide? Okay, I'll start here. The group felt that it's an eye chart and a lot of the data isn't helpful. So maybe drawing out 3 or 4 of the high traffic areas.
Okay, yeah.
Didn't we?
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers in there there's a lot of blank spaces too.
I think we came up with, getting it down, I think there were like 4 or 5
Spots.
that.
4 or 5
that came
spots,
up,
yes.
yeah.
You wanna
Okay,
tell
can
us
you
what
help,
those
yeah,
are?
can
Yeah,
you tell us which
does
they
somebody
are?
have those, hopefully?
I got them.
I think you put them
The
in
first
the,
one, North Thetford Road,
Yeah, here's
no,
the-
not North Thetford, the third one, East Thetford Road or
Yep.
Vermont.
Third one, yep.
The first one looks like it has data for every year. It looks like a permanent counter.
That's New Hampshire 10.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
No,
New Hampshire 10's kinda,
North
That's-
Thetford Road.
You gotta leave that.
We
Yeah,
already
that
went,
was-
we already
I-
went through this, Rich.
Yeah, I will resend this, I'll take a note to
There are,
resend
we
this.
identified 4 or 5 of
Okay,
the
okay.
highest
Yeah.
volume.
yeah.
okay, great.
Yep,
And the other comment was, no one ever thought that there was gonna be a major retail presence, so I'm not sure if that's the right word, but
Yeah,
you're basically telling us we can't have a major retail presence in here because traffic counts, and I don't think anyone ever thought that we were gonna have a major retail, but,
See, I tend to say that, yes, no one in this room thought that, but,
Yeah, I would,
but
actually,
there's a lot of people out there that are worried about
a Walmart?
a Walmart or whatever going in there, which
Okay.
is just not feasible. So,
yeah, I think that
Never gonna
there's
happen.
no harm in saying.
Yeah.
okay.
Um,
Okay, we got, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So Chris, you're gonna send us the 4 or 5, Rich is
Okay.
gonna send, thank you, Rich.
They're in the notes.
I'll make a note.
Thank you, Rich. Okay? Any other comments on this slide?
Thank you. Good point, good points.
Okay.
Yeah, this one just trying to lay out the, you know, where are your development options to add to the tax base of the community, and ends up being, you know, not so much, a little bit of, not so much retail on a big scale. A little residential, there's plenty of demand. One of our early meetings, the thought was, well, is it really feasible to think in terms of new development? And for residential, yeah, for retail, limited, for office, limited. So that's what this is saying.
The reason for that limited office and retail is going back to the internet and telephone services.
I'm thinking infrastructure, land patterns.
Maybe a few bullets would help us understand that,
Okay.
because I felt that I read this slide and said, I guess I'm gonna have to take your,
Yeah, take my word for it, I hear you.
and again, you're using words like limited,
Yeah,
which are fungible.
Also, just say that the
you're using words like fungible.
The commercial expansion, not the expansion, the approved commercial use we just had that increased,
And I gotta,
it increased our, what it is office
Yeah.
space.
I think in my mind as well, and I don't know how this enters in, that I don't think there's an appetite for a 6-story office building, you know, with 3 acres of parking either. You know, I think that what you have is,
No,
Right, but what we're looking for is not one solution, but
yeah,
it's a lot of little solutions that are gonna add up
Yeah.
to a big
Yeah.
difference.
yeah,
But again,
And
how
a
can-
little bit of office here, a little bit of residential, maybe a commercial. on the
Yeah.
well,
other
I'd say
side.
that's what we're considering, it's not necessarily,
I agree, you don't
yeah,
want to lead
that's
the
not,
suit.
and let's, well,
Yep.
I'll say that till later.
Yep, okay.
so
We
where
wanna-
are we on this?
We'd love some bullet points to
Some
understand
bullet points.
what makes
Should
it
I
limited.
include the thought that larger scale office projects don't fit the community?
I think I'm gonna leave that to you, that's your professional opinion, but if
Yeah, okay.
there is data driving limited or office, or give us
Yeah.
something that, tell us what you're hanging your hat on.
Yeah, okay,
I don't want the group influencing what you're writing, I just want it clear.
yeah, okay,
appreciate that.
thank you. No, excuse me just a second. We're ready to go.
Okay, this would be another bridge slide,
Yep,
okay?
this one's got a lot of numbers on it.
So, I'm gonna try to blow it up, so that we can focus on it a little better.
Sort of trying to set the growth context of the community, some of the major characteristics of the community. I could break them into 2.
Um,
The first 2 could be one slide. Well, I'm jumping ahead of you guys, so why don't you tell me what your thoughts are?
So, what are the conclusions you're drawing from this? Is this data average, normal? I mean, I feel like you throw a bunch of data at the audience, and then I would look for the comments, you know, what conclusions you're gonna draw, and there are none. So I
Yeah,
guess,
there's no slow growth, old, affluent,
then I'm looking for a slide header that says that.
okay.
What are you telling us
Mhm.
about this data?
Okay.
Or notes,
Yes,
yeah.
either one.
Well, but I think having a heading,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of old people here.
Affluent.
That's original.
Did I say that out loud?
Right. We don't need any more old people. No.
Affluent,
Make it
yeah.
every day.
Right.
Okay?
Do you want it broken into 2 slides so that there's less numbers on the slide, or are you okay with it? I seen Dave say.
I'm happy with 2.
You want 2 slides?
I said I'd be happy with 2.
Yeah, I
There's a
do,
lot
I
of
would
data
too.
on that slide.
All things considered, the way we're going through this and my sense of the group, I think I'll do the first, which is growth, and then the second, which is characteristics.
Okay?
So,
Yeah,
I would have a comment on understanding the source of the data,
okay.
so that, and my other one is, later on, I'm recalling that you in your slides significantly use the term units.
I I'm sorry,
You
turn,
use units as opposed to households, as opposed to.
okay, yeah,
So, what I'm looking at on this particular slide is you say, household I'm trying to read it.
Occupied housing units.
Yeah.
Occupied housing units.
right.
Now, is that a unit, or is it a household, or is it,
It's a household.
because since I saw this, I've actually looked at all of our database, and 700, I can't read the numbers. but-
It's 748
Yeah.
households.
So, our data,
But that's in 2023.
yeah, and that I wondered too, is like.
731.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, okay,
How
that's-
are we gonna get to 720, to 2023?
Right,
What are
right.
you assuming to get there, and, so that's, I'm not opposed, I'm just trying to understand.
You'd like to have the source.
Where it came from.
Right, and
Okay.
so when I looked at, our grand list,
Mm-hmm.
I come up with, let me just pull it up because I had it just here a minute ago.
That might be a,
I think it's
oh,
800, there's over 800 units.
yeah,
That's not housing, but that's, units.
yeah,
So there's property, and then there's units on that property.
and then there's households. Households are occupied housing units. Housing units are housing units, a number of housing units. Some of them are seasonal, therefore they're not considered occupied. Therefore then, if it's a unit that's not occupied, it's a unit but not a household. So a household is occupied housing units.
Yeah,
So-
we've talked about this, when we did that research, there were a lot of, whatever you wanna call them, units, properties that were not occupiable and others that were not occupied.
So I think that delineation is important,
Yes, so we'd
Okay.
ask for some clarification on what we're counting here.
Okay.
so that when you're
Well,
saying,
I
if
was
we have this
saying
number.
households, parentheses, occupied housing units. I don't know how much clearer I can make that.
Well, in other
And
words,
I'm not being facetious, I'm just wondering.
but when we count our number of units and we get 828 units,
Yeah,
you've come down to that because you've taken out
Okay.
vacation homes.
why don't
and
I
taken out-
add housing units then as
Well,
a,
what if just, Rusty's pointing out that in one place you're using units, one you're using households, and one you're using occupied households. What if you just make the distinctions clear, or I assume you're using the different ones for good reasons, explain what they're.
I hope you're right.
What,
So,
so explain why you're using, or if they're not for good reasons,
Yeah.
then use the appropriate designation for each section.
Yeah, I just wanna, yeah, okay, I got you, I'll be clear on that. But
so we
households, parentheses, occupied housing units.
right.
I don't know what's,
That's pretty clear.
So
that's what I was
no,
thinking.
That's clear. I think-
Okay, all
I think
right.
it's just making your distinctions.
The other way I could make it
Accessible.
would be to add in housing units, occupied housing units in this table.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And then parenthetically say, oh, vacation homes, other things
Vacant,
are not.
seasonal
Right,
units.
exactly, yes, because people wonder these things, and it's like.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
And I'd also like to point out that just because of a vacation home doesn't mean they don't pay taxes. I mean,
Yeah,
so the
Oh,
really
absolutely.
relevant, we're really ultimately getting
yeah.
down to.
But see,
taxes,
the
so-
households and population typically
Yeah.
you look at together.
I get that, but from our
In
purposes, it's more
in
about.
some New Hampshire communities, Lyme a little bit, but if you get into Moultonborough, I mean, it's like, if you're talking population, you don't wanna talk housing units, because it looks like there's only a half a person living in each housing
I
unit.
used to live in
Twice as
Harlem, so we
many.
had the
But
same
isn't
issue.
that-
Okay.
Yeah, so you gotta, okay, so I'm gonna add total units, I'm gonna expand that table, total units, vacant unit, I'm gonna make two tables out of this table.
So
And I'm gonna add something at the top that says what it means to me at least.
I just need clarification to understand why it's not important to, like Dave said, no matter how many housing units you have, those housing units, every one of them pays a property tax.
Because on this table, I'm not talking about property tax, I'm talking about population.
Exactly, but
And
you're
how
gonna use
many
that unit
households?
down the road, you're gonna use this unit number to multiply up.
Yeah, okay, let's get to that one.
So, when
Yeah.
I look at Moultonborough or Bartlett or these places that are near ski resorts and so forth, one of the reasons their tax base is workable is because they have all those units.
And
that
no
aren't
cost.
occupied at no cost.
Right.
So,
So if you could just add in both categories, that's the
Yep.
easiest fix, I think, so.
And,
Okay.
and when it comes around again in the presentation, we can
We'll talk
address
about
that
it
again.
again.
So do you have data on, do we have a significant number of properties or units where people are not paying taxes?
not that they're not paying taxes, they're not
They don't-
occupied
it's not-
because they're
you're not
summer homes
occupied.
or whatever else. I don't know exactly how you go from 825 units down to
731.
731.
Well, remember too,
It's
that,
100, almost,
Yeah.
90 units, so it's like,
yeah,
okay, maybe they are vacation, I don't know what they are,
Yeah,
but I'm just
yeah.
saying, I don't wanna sow 700
the
units.
census data too, remember, inter-census year data is estimates. And it's based on samples, and there's a margin of error, but it's
Okay.
still the best data available as far as occupied, population and households, yeah.
Okay, I'm moving to the next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we got
Yeah,
it,
that'll be
thank
great.
you.
This slide is pretty straightforward. Let me see if there's any comments.
Nope.
Ta-da.
Flip it, quick.
Yeah, before,
There's plenty of slides left.
are we on high values, that one? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if this is,
No comments.
I just, yeah, and I'm sorry.
No,
Over
that's-
here,
that's
over
me.
here.
Oh, okay. I think one of the major collisions in town is that this, wanting to have lower taxes and a very consistent high demand for quality across the board in Lyme.
Mhm.
The people, the same people, including me and everybody, we pay too much in taxes.
Mhm.
But when it comes to, whether it's the school or the, having the extra day at the Lyme dump, it's always, well, let's go for the best.
Spend more money.
Yeah, let's spend more money. So it's a real contradiction in the town, and I think that should be commented on and highlighted.
So this
What-
slide
what-
is just talking about that one subject though.
Right.
Okay, so
There may be a need for a second slide, I'm just saying, all we're
Okay.
saying is that Lyme has a relatively high spending per person.
Mhm.
well,
Tax.
High values.
that's.
And high value paid for
But that
it,
seems,
unfortunately,
that seems
it'd
relevant.
be even worse.
It seems-
So-
High expectations.
High expectations.
Okay, let me think about that.
But
I hear you, I understand what you're saying. Go ahead.
You're providing the context about expectation. I don't think the data tells us about expectation.
I mean, it is what it is.
We can add that.
It's there,
Right.
you're funding services at a fairly high level.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
because, not
And
because
luckily,
we like to.
I think, in my opinion, luckily, you also have a fairly high, residential tax rate. This is an unusual town,
Well, this.
because,
Go ahead.
because
We know.
you have high values and a high tax rate.
Yes.
That's an unusual combination. Usually you have one or the other.
So
If you have
why
high
is-
values like Bedford, you have a low tax rate.
Right,
If you have high
is-
spending like Franklin, it's usually combined with a low,
right.
low service levels and a high tax rate.
So
But-
why is Lyme high and high?
Right, I mean, that,
And I think it's
Because our budget is high, right?
part, yeah. I
Because
think you
we-
fund
we-
schools
we-
that are above it.
we
Schools
demand-
are, what, 2/3 of your spending or so, and you fund
We
them.
demand a lot.
Yeah, you fund them
Yeah, so
well.
our $9 million budget is high compared to other towns. for
Yeah,
our
on a per
residents.
capita basis, yeah.
So we just spend more money than a lot of towns.
You spend more money.
I have one
We
comment
demand more
about the title.
services on it.
Yeah,
It says
Yeah.
relatively high spending per capita. I know what you mean, but I'm not so sure everyone's.
costs, you want to say costs?
Taxes. You're talking about taxes, right?
Well,
Not really.
well, in effect,
Relatively high.
that tax commitment.
Net tax commitment, it
Yeah.
says tax right in the category, but it's not up there, so spending, taxes, I mean, yeah, I understand, but,
Yeah.
for someone
All
just
right.
looking at this, spending, what exactly does that mean? I mean,
It's up to you guys, what do you like?
I think a note or an
Spending
explanation
slash
saying,
taxes
Sure,
on both?
whatever,
There's
whatever.
a
As long as, as long as they
demand for
understand
high-
it, it's the taxes we're talking about.
There's a
Yeah,
demand
okay.
for a high school
I would
quality,
say
there's a demand
spending
for
slash tax.
Spending slash taxes,
no
got it.
potholes and no mud season.
So demand for high quality of
The
services.
dump's open 2 days a week, did you say?
Yeah.
See, there's your big problem.
Resulting
right
in-
there.
It's open for, what, 4.5 hours over the course of the week?
It's ridiculous. what our town is.
Okay, I'm gonna keep moving.
Non-residential tax base is stable and minimal.
Minimal.
See, minimal's the key point here. It's
Right,
it's
right.
stable,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
really matter.
And as a matter of.
Well, by that I mean, yeah, it's minimal now. I guess it's nice to, I thought it was nice to put a time frame, a little bit of a time trend on it.
That's fine.
Okay.
Russ, I was confused when I saw the first slide that showed we had a lot of residential and not much else.
Mhm.
Then we went away to something else, and we came back to this slide. And when I
Yeah.
first looked at it, I thought, is that different? Is that any different?
Well, it kinda is,
So,
because it isn't the
no,
first, I'm sorry.
But I looked hard to figure out why it's different, so
Yeah.
maybe they wanna be together and to say, here's another slice of it? I don't know, I'll leave it
Yeah.
up to you,
Let me go,
but that occurred to me.
I wrote repeat on mine, so I felt it was repetitive.
When you say repeat, you're referring to slide 13?
Yeah, it is, but this one shows trends, whereas the other shows comparison. That's the difference. They both say the same thing, but they say it
I would be
a
tempted to say,
different perspective on the same fact.
the previous one is Lyme versus other towns.
Grafton County.
Grafton County, right. I'd be tempted to say, this is another view of the same thing, but looking at Lyme over time.
Okay, so let's move this one to,
Yes.
Looking at it 2 different time periods.
Two different ways to think about it, yes.
Okay.
so where was that
This
other one?
was slide 13, which was Lyme and Grafton County.
So move to behind slide 13, right?
Yep.
That's a good point, thank you. Okay, gotcha. Other than that, it is what it is. Okay, next,
My comment on this
Yes.
is, I'd like to see percent increase per year and over the 10 years. Again, you can play with the left-hand scale, and you can make it look steep, or you can make it look flat. So what is the true growth over this 10-year timeframe?
okay, so maybe in a heading? Every year, that would be a table. You want a table.
I just want I want to know whether this is
Year
a
by
lot
year.
or a little compared to CPI.
Okay.
So an
All
average
right,
over the.
I wanna make sure I've
10 years.
got, I know, I understand the words you're saying. I'm just trying to think of how we wanna present it.
Why not just an average over the 10 years that's up there, or 9, whatever many years are up there?
Do you
This
need
is
it
an
year by
average number.
year?
No, I think the long-term trend is more important.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Just
You don't want
on the
people to
right-
get
okay,
too much detail.
percentage change,
Over the last 10 years for a total of X,
Yeah.
the same thing.
percentage change, I can do it real and current dollars. In other words, I can,
Pick
after
one-
inflation or before inflation.
Just pick one.
Pick one,
Really?
I don't think,
I can do
I mean, inflation's been really low, so, I
It
mean,
has.
I think you can just say, if somebody says, is this
Percent
before or
change.
after?
You wanna know the,
Okay,
you wanna know the scale of this change.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
compared to a norm.
Yeah, I would do that.
but the norm being inflation? Can I use
I
inflation?
would,
That's what
I
I
would
would
do
do,
after
CPI.
inflation,
Yeah.
because inflation compounds, it matters.
I think do both. Honestly, it's not hard.
Both is fine.
That's fine.
It's not hard.
And then,
It'd be a little tiny 4-cell table.
so let's make it a little easier to understand whether this is a problem or not.
Okay. Okay, yep.
And
Real,
It's always a problem. If they go up.
constant, taxes, tax rate.
Okay? So I'm not telling you what to say, I'm just saying you need to tell us.
What I might
this
wanna
tells us.
do here is have this slide and then have that second slide.
I'll leave
I
it
mean,
at
just
you.
a 4-cell table.
Anybody else want to comment on that slide? That
Thank
is
you.
Slide 16.
Yep,
Slide 17. thought this slide was very clear.
It's really a prime number too.
Rusty, you happy with source?
Yeah, that's, I mean, this. Yeah, I'm happy that, I just, the unit is what I'm always, I just have to say, I don't know whether we should refer to it
Oh,
as something
okay,
other
yeah,
than
yeah.
unit. I just, household,
Well, it's,
residential household, or I don't know what we wanna call it, but
Right, right.
um,
Can it just say housing unit?
housing unit?
So
Per
that they
housing unit,
understand
yeah,
what the
sure.
unit is?
yeah,
Okay.
okay,
Okay,
thank you.
I'm on slide,
Shows where you, that's where your money goes, to buy a baby school education.
okay, so again, same thing as comment on the last one. What's the total increase over the last 10 years? What's CPI? Is this a problem?
And is this,
Yeah.
is this K through 12 or K through 8?
This is your tax rate, so it's K through 12.
K through 12.
Yeah,
So it might be good, if I recall correctly, there were some that were K through 8, or maybe they all
There's
got.
one
yeah, the
later that we-
enrollment, I
So
think
if
is.
they're all gonna be K through 12, you don't have to say that, but. if
Yeah, why don't I
some are
say
K through
school
8
tax rates K through 12, make it clear, it's easy to clarify that.
I think some people might not know what market, not equalize the market value.
Yeah,
And that, maybe that needs to be
Yeah,
explained.
maybe you
a little
can
bit.
explain that in your.
Because I think a lot of
Okay.
people, I mean, I don't
If
know.
it's
Okay.
important, if it's important to
Because
explain it, if
bullet
it's
down
not
here.
important.
Yeah, if it's
Take it
not,
out.
if it's not important,
Take it out.
then don't bother.
well, it's kind of important.
Is it?
Then explain it.
It is, isn't it? I mean, in your case, it's not terribly, it's not overwhelmingly important, because you don't let your assessed values get way off market value.
So my recommendation would be, you know, again, in the speaker notes to say,
Yeah.
this is equalized or not equal, I don't care, it doesn't matter to me particularly. But take the word out, because every word you put up there, people are gonna stare
Yeah.
at and say.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember equalized.
You know, I think if I drop that not equalized to, these are your actual tax rates year by year.
That's my point.
That's what we
Yeah,
want.
exactly.
so why don't we just drop the not equalized to
Sounds
this?
good.
And I wanna know how much they increased.
Yeah, and we got
individually
that
combined
increase,
over the 10-year period. Again, against some norm, CPI.
yeah.
Mhm.
As far as combined goes, that's on that earlier slide. Yeah, okay, gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Okay, I'm on the
These
next
are all
slide.
helpful.
Comparative enrollment.
Yeah,
Again, people had a question as to K through 8, K through 12, and
Yes.
I'd like to.
a lot of
delete-
people
I'd
didn't like
to-
this slide.
I'd like to delete this slide.
okay.
Very
I
misleading.
don't blame you.
That's why
I'd
you're
like
here
to
today.
too.
Yeah?
I'd like to
Because it
also.
suggests that we're back to our 19, whatever.
Well,
Let's
this,
We're
not,
not.
let's,
So,
it's riddled with.
Or delete it.
You're
Well,
agreeing
so
to
what-
delete it?
So we're not, so this isn't accurate?
Well, because you're measuring percentage increase and decrease over a period of time, and so the percentages,
yeah.
but.
What this
not
says is
actual
your
number.
enrollment has
is up.
been
Strong.
stronger than county
Or
That's
state.
right.
Yes.
or state. And I don't know,
Is that important to have in text? To
You
clarify
You could just
that?
say that in
Yeah,
text,
I
I
think
don't
it's
like that
important.
slide either.
I think it's
Yeah,
important
it's
to
really-
communicate.
yeah, it's a funny looking slide, I
Right.
agree.
It is.
Yes,
Hey, man,
that
you
one-
made it.
That one comes out.
Okay.
That was when I had a sense of humor.
Yes.
But-
Right
So
now.
replace with text.
But I think it is.
Well, I don't know.
It is important to communicate what your thought here was.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Basically saying.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's a table, or
Statewide.
if it's a, no.
It's a
See, you gotta use an index if you're gonna compare Lyme and Grafton County. Otherwise, Lyme's this big and you can't see Lyme.
That's right.
So you have to use an index first of all.
You're just
I see.
suggesting that our trend is not parallel to.
Right,
the
it's
statewide
stronger.
Trend.
Yeah.
We're holding steady when everyone else is declining.
Yeah, so I think that's
That's a great
that's really
Mhm.
important to communicate.
Yeah.
Just text,
That's fine.
no slot, no graphic?
Okay.
You can have,
Or text with the
you
graphic?
can
No
have a
graphic.
picture of a
Just
kid.
text.
I got it.
You got it.
Moving on.
Let it go, Russ, I got it.
Okay, boss.
I'm writing it down.
Okay, drop slide, add words.
Which follows into this next slide. We have strong demand for education in Lyme as compared to Grafton and New
Yeah.
Hampshire, and we have,
Yeah,
we have, 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 Again, there's a lot on this slide.
Yeah,
It's
let me
trying to read it.
split it, yeah. I'll split it, I'll find a way to split it. I'm looking at it now.
Rusty's gonna pound on you on the units.
That's all right, it's consistent.
You can see the future?
Well, see, this is why it's important to use occupied units.
So we went
Because,
from 731 in the last slide, now we're at 705.
yeah,
So we need to be consistent so that.
Okay, yeah,
people
yeah.
Pound on Rusty and say how many, he's gonna say 820, but maybe 8, or 731 are occupied. They need to, they
It's
need
what
to
you're
all
using that
add up.
number for.
yeah, yeah, okay,
When you
I'll
use
check
that number to
that.
come up with a ratio that you wanna use as a multiplier later on, you better, those are very volatile
Yeah, yeah.
calculations.
We also
Yeah.
didn't like the fact that you did enrollment K through 8. It's more like, what, 280 total students rather than 194?
290.
And you used K through 8 in this slide,
So that
Okay.
you- instead of the K through 12.
Yeah.
okay?
Okay,
So I just, again, we're looking for consistency,
yeah.
okay?
4 high school students, right about.
Well,
Uh,
we're at 299 this year.
I'm just trying to think why I did that. Sometimes there's, K through 8. I don't know why I
Because we
couldn't
have the
do it.
tuition costs for the.
Yeah,
the
no,
others.
I don't know, yeah, I know, but, yeah, you're right, but that's not why I did that.
Okay, we're gonna let you figure that out, because we're gonna keep
Yeah,
moving.
I'll work on this slide.
We're just looking for the most consistent representation.
For your notes,
Just look at this
about this,
again.
it's anywhere from 295
The cost
to
per
300
student
total
is pretty straightforward,
So they vary.
and I did it per elementary student because some districts don't have high school students, but I could do it per total with your, yeah, I don't see why I couldn't do, the K-12.
'Cause that's,
It's not gonna change a lot, cause your tuition is about the same as your K through 8 cost per student.
Yeah, absolutely.
but it's consistent throughout, and then when you get to the multipliers at the end of the day, that's where it's really.
That's really, yep, so
So,
we want it to all tie together.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of why I did that, whether it adds anything to make it K through 8. Okay, I'll work on that.
Okay. Again, you use terms like equalized value per pupil is high. What are you trying to tell the average townsperson in English?
That you've got the ability to, you know, your tax base is high enough to carry that load.
Taxes are high enough to carry that load,
Yeah,
or taxes
Be-
are
yeah,
high
yeah,
because of that load.
because, well, equalized valuation per pupil, right, is important because it is the link between taxes and costs, okay? That's why I put that in
So, I would suggest a sentence or two
there. Yeah,
in your
Costs-
second slide.
Costs drive the taxes, not the other way around.
yeah, so you spend this much,
So you have.
and you have this many students, and the link between the number of students and your spending and the tax rate is that valuation.
Right.
Right.
But what I was hearing you say is that we have this tax money, so we spend it on the school. And
Mhm.
what I'm saying is, the school is demanding this much money, hence we have the tax rate.
Yeah.
She likes that second message better.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we budget in this town,
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Plus the other thing about.
The schools come in and say, we need this much money.
as does the town, and then these guys have to figure out
Yeah,
what the
right.
valuation and the tax rate is.
Yeah,
So, Russ, what is the average daily membership?
yeah.
It's the number of kids that show up to school.
The average daily membership is over the course of the year. Sometimes you get dropouts, okay? It's the broadest measure of enrollment.
But is this coming?
There's also a measure of fall enrollment. It's one day.
So is this coming from?
It's the state.
Source data, so you're using state data,
Yeah,
which is
which
why
is
you're
reported
using
from
the
here to the
definitions and the
state.
descriptions here, you're using their data, so you're using their description. Okay. Again, I would love for you to just avoid the whole conversation of equalization.
Yeah.
Because.
That's
almost
an
like-
element that confuses everybody.
Oh, no, you kinda have to though, on this slide, if you're gonna do that comparison. Because what if a town is at 80% of value? You know, their valuation per student will be lower, but it's
But where is
It's
that,
not
where is that
towards
reflected? here?
market.
Where is that issue? I understand your issue.
Yeah.
But where is it reflective in what the selected data that we've chosen to
Because
compare?
there I'm trying to show
Is Grafton
the
County?
equalized value per pupil, the tax base you have per student, okay? In that last cell, the last cells. And if I don't use equalized, you're gonna get noise from the fact that Orford hasn't revalued their properties in 6 years, therefore their valuation is lower. You see, so you've gotta kinda, if you wanna
So,
compare
Maybe the question.
valuation, you need to equalize.
Right.
Can we add that in notes?
Yeah,
Right.
so where you feel professionally it's important
Yeah.
to use equalized data, have a note saying, I'm using equalizing data here for the following reasons.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
And my little quibble is, I understand they use average daily membership, can we just use average daily attendance?
Oh, sure.
Because,
Yeah, the
because
membership
they're really
is-
not members of
Yeah.
a country club here, they're going to
Yeah.
school, so.
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah.
That sounds
Members.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're moving on.
Average daily attendance.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That is a lot there. Okay.
This one.
Again, you use K through 8, we were wondering why not K through 12?
Okay.
And
I actually believe that's K-12 numbers
Yes.
for Lyme anyway, because I did the arithmetic, and there's about 300 kids.
Well, can you just confirm,
Yeah, maybe we
Yeah,
have the
I'll
heading
check
wrong.
that.
confirm those
Yeah.
numbers? And
Yeah.
and if it's not K through 12, it would be good.
Yeah, I'll label it. Yeah,
The math works for total students, not.
not K through 8.
Okay.
Okay?
all right, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Very helpful.
On the big picture,
Yeah,
this slide drew a lot of heat.
I can understand why.
Okay, what are you trying to tell us?
Well, I'm trying to show here where the town's revenues come from and where the spending goes. And I can probably do it with 2 pie charts, that might be better.
And a few sentences.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
95% from residential
Yeah,
and 77% or 72% in education. So a couple pie charts would be great.
plus, and one, it'd be one for revenues and one for where it goes, you know, how it's paid for,
That
spent.
would be wonderful.
Okay,
Okay?
cut that, thank you, good point. Okay, impact scenarios, a lot of numbers here, but let's hear what you have to say.
The fourth point is the most important.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's actually, there, it says residential development alternatives. I should drop the word residential there, because I do have a commercial one in there too.
Right.
Okay.
And I would suggest you either, that fourth point either moves to the top and gets highlighted, or it gets highlighted in some way.
Okay, I'll move it up.
Because I think it kind of gets buried under the other stuff.
Okay.
so.
And another,
There is an infinite number, yeah.
right,
Yeah.
another.
I almost
You
think
can
it
put
should
those
be
in
there
notes.
are an infinite number, but.
So, and I had a question, so with the different scenarios you use,
Mm.
we talked about that there were tipping points at a certain intensity. So are these isolated scenarios, or could we like add A, B, and C and D together? I'm saying if we added A, B, C, and D together, would they hit a tipping point and throw everything off, or are they isolated
I see what you mean.
options?
Well, they're isolated options,
That's
is
what I
the
thought.
short answer.
Okay, that's what I wanted to,
Okay.
Right.
so make that clear.
Yeah.
You can't have all.
You can't, yeah, because my
Well,
reading.
you know,
You
you
could,
could have,
you could.
yeah, you could have
Combination.
a combination of 60 units of high-end plus 30 units of elderly
Yeah,
plus
but-
this. Plus,
And then
but
you
what
might
I
have a
want-
new school.
But, yeah,
Right,
exactly.
well,
But
true.
that's the point.
Yeah.
It is, that's what what my
For this
question was
study.
after.
Right.
With this study, with what you did, I wanna make it clear that, yeah, this scenario will give you this, but if you take this scenario with this scenario, we don't know whether you're gonna, or you do know, you're gonna hit a tipping point, and
Yeah,
then the school is you're gonna need a new school.
right. The point of this was to try to look at the margin and see this type of development versus that, versus that, and I thought that was the question.
It is.
But-
It is a
okay,
question.
All right,
He's asking for a clarification at the end, saying, you
yeah,
know, these are all
yeah,
done in
yeah.
isolation.
okay, yeah,
Otherwise, the obvious thing would be, well, let's do them all, and
okay,
Right.
well, yeah, you could do most all of them.
Well, I think that's kind of the end point, is that, first of all,
Do
we're
you
not doing
want
any-
to
we're not doing
assert-
anything, it's what a
I mean,
developer
if
wants to
you
do.
do this, then this, then this, then this,
Yeah,
this,
right.
and this.
But you can see how each one of those particular development scenarios would affect the tax base. So you
Yeah.
can say, hey, this makes sense to do more of this than that, or to do none of this, or whatever.
I just wanna
I see
make,
the word unit in there too, I need to clarify.
I just wanna make sure
Better trained now.
that,
Thank you.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you're clear.
gotcha, beat you to it.
I wanna make sure that you're clear in communicating to
Okay.
the town that this scenario is what we think would work, but if we're gonna need a new school and a new fire station by mushing a few together, you can't, then you need to know that.
Yes,
And
okay,
that should be clear.
okay. Could add scenarios together, possibly hitting a tipping point, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're saying?
You should communicate
Yeah.
where the tipping points are.
Well, no, he's not gonna know that. At some point,
At
it's gonna come.
some point,
Yes.
yeah.
But you can't ask
won't
him
be
to
able to
identify it.
it.
No,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's not fair, but talk about the tipping points.
The tipping point cumulative impacts,
Yeah.
yes.
I have two more comments on that slide right there. Number one, don't say in its attempt to, just say
Yeah,
it
yeah,
illustrates.
illustrates,
And it isolates.
yeah.
Don't,
Makes it too obvious that I don't know what I'm
Don't
doing.
say that.
try, do or do not.
We're gonna
right?
try.
And, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then the second thing,
Yeah.
I know why you said, let's see what happens if we have 50 of these things.
Mhm.
You need to spend a minute and say,
My
okay,
apologies.
we're not recommending, we're not expecting, we're not any of these things, but if we said, suppose we built one of these,
Mhm.
the impact on the tax would be dozens and dozens of dollars.
So that's on the next slide, explain why 50?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, I'm-
exactly, yeah.
say it again, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, the reason to look at 50 of these is
Yeah.
because it's like kind of a big number for the town.
Yeah, it's
but-
not a one-year deal.
And it's not a one-year deal, but if you said, okay, what happens if we build one $450,000 home? The benefit to the town is small, but it's, one home is like $3,000 to the good in the tax.
No, one home is $12,000 to the good
Right,
in
right.
terms of revenues.
Well, yeah, but then you've got some expenses.
Right.
And so.
But not too much.
It sugars out that it's such a small number, it's really hard to understand. And so we're just saying, let's see what happens if somebody did a bunch of these.
Okay, so by
and
way of
that's the reason to
explaining the
do 50 of them.
scenarios,
Yeah, because people are gonna say, oh, they're encouraging you to get 50
yeah.
these kind, and then another 50 of these, another of these, and I
And
don't
then you
wanna
remember,
run into the
we do
problem.
have that growth background earlier on that says, that's about what you did over a 10-year period.
Right.
So that would be great to add in notes.
Yeah, I can
So that
put
we
that in
know that
notes,
you're gonna
yeah.
cover that.
Yes, right.
Okay,
And
I
why
still
50?
want to know, again,
Mhm.
I'm a little vague on what you're looking for.
I just want an explanation of why you chose to do 50.
Oh, okay,
And the answer is if you just did one,
I got the
It
notes.
wouldn't show.
okay,
it wouldn't show much.
Right.
And,
And a 10-year average might be 50.
yeah,
So that's why we chose 50
Right.
for all these scenarios.
yep,
yeah,
that's good.
thank you.
Okay?
It still
Yeah.
seems high.
Are we on this chart now? I have a little bit of either in a note or something. I mean, when we get to condos, okay, we
Yeah.
have current experience in both Lyme as well as
Yeah.
River Valley.
Yeah.
It indicates that the amount of school children in those condos is significantly less than in single-family homes. And
Yes,
so, within either a note or,
and that's the way it's shown here too.
50 units only brings 3 kids.
okay, sorry,
Yeah, I
I
think
missed
that's
that.
pretty
I
low.
missed that.
Do you want that called out in the notes?
Yes, I would like that to be put in the notes.
Condos generate fewer kids, well,
So the other thing,
Current experience is,
yeah,
so.
it could be back to why you did elementary versus high school, but I don't think that's important in our scenario here. I think we just
well,
wanna show.
except that the reason I did, and I'll be glad to mold them back together, is that physically, it's your school. If it needs to be expanded, it's your
Right.
problem.
I don't see any reason in having them both there. I mean, any problem having
Well,
both.
I mean, I think one of the reasons to call out the K through 8 separate from the high school is, high school, there's a 20K expense for each new kid.
Yeah.
That's right.
The marginal cost.
The marginal
And-
cost
and
of
I-
K through 8
And that
is
table
shown.
reflects that
Yes,
marginal
right.
cost.
It's, you know, you said,
Yeah.
what, 2,900, and, you know, so it's probably someplace between 1,500 and 4,000, and you calculated 2,900, and I'm
Yeah.
happy with that. I'm totally happy with that.
Okay, yeah. And then the high school's 20 grand,
There's
plus minus.
no way out of that.
And it's just.
Your supporting data goes back, I thought we got rid of the K, you said your supporting data wasn't delineating K through 8, it was all high school. So, in other words, you had a prior slide that built to the numbers that you then multiplied.
Oh, to get to the
The
cost
of
per
education.
student?
Yeah, so you delineated out high school and back in the prior slide. So-
Okay, yeah,
So you don't wanna take that out, then we need
okay,
to
let
know.
me
that-
see where, I've got the original presentation here.
Is that this one? Slide 20?
You're saying how I got to the marginal cost of
Which you then-
elementary school?
Yeah, which you then use to come up with the
Yeah,
cost
yeah.
you plugged in here.
Let's make sure they're correct and consistent.
Right.
I think that's the comment.
That's the.
Okay, you want me to double check?
Make
Double
sure-
check the marginal cost.
The consistency.
Yeah,
If we're saying 290 students, let's make sure we use 290 all the way through, same
Yeah.
number of housing units.
yeah,
Let's make sure that nobody can pick us apart on the details.
yeah, okay.
Okay?
And I had one other question, on the comparison, you've got 50, single family with 13 and 6 kids, and then 50 single family, higher student population. And
Yeah.
the net revenues come out larger in that second, in the second one, which surprised me. The net revenue for 13 and 6 kids is 56,800, and with the larger number of kids, it's 149.
No, the single family that's 56
So
is
it's
single
column- it's the
family
third and
250, right?
It's the columns 3 and 4
Three and
here.
four.
Oh, okay,
I think maybe the 149,000 is wrong, because
Okay, I'll
I
check
wouldn't be
those.
surprised by the 190,000 loss.
yeah, I transferred these numbers from the
Okay.
detailed spreadsheets, I'll double check.
Okay, just to check, thank you.
Thank you.
Probably negative 149,000.
Yeah, might be, I'll double check that.
Yep.
Yep.
I think the parentheses are left out.
Okay, thank you,
Yep.
yeah.
Questions and comments?
Thank you, good catch.
Next steps? Okay. I think it was just telling us we're at the end of the slideshow.
Oh.
Which
Other
one of these
comments?
gadgets is talking to me?
Okay, do you all feel like you can make these edits
Yeah.
and feel comfortable in the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, how long would it take for us to see the Rev B with comments?
The
A
next
lot of-
version.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah,
of
this
it's, a lot of
version.
it's your time, so I'll let you dictate the schedule.
Well, I wouldn't want let a lot of time fly between today and when I started digging in. So that it's still, so that I'm sure that I'm picking up the right things. I would think, I don't understand why it wouldn't be early next week,
Okay.
you know,
So
like
what is-
Tuesday, you know,
Let's say in
probably the
next 10
same
days.
as your 2020, a little bit comfortable.
Let's say in the next 10 days.
Yeah, that's real fine.
Okay, we'll have our meeting, hopefully we'll be able to schedule a joint committee meeting and we'll start scheduling a town forum. And then we'll communicate with you
On
once
dates.
on those dates.
We're
and
also
vote.
gonna have to work on the questionnaire.
We'll have to do both.
So are you still planning on using the questionnaire, or is it a
Well,
question we
we'll
had?
go over it, we'll go over that. We
I
need to
think
deal
we
with the
feel a lot more
questionnaire.
comfortable now about what is gonna happen at the forum, and now we can concentrate on the questionnaire and the timing.
Yeah,
we had asked the question, are you comfortable with us videotaping?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can use that, okay? There was a lot of comments asking about Grafton County data, yes, which we know is not in your scope, but is it available?
Well, actually asking about the Upper Valley Lake
Upper
Something,
Valley, yes.
the, Lake Something Regional Planning Commission, is it possible for the places you have Lyme in Grafton County, is it also possible to get, data for the Regional Planning Commission? Because it's a little more representative.
The quote is,
Be
it's more in
also
our
or
orbit.
instead of,
No, I wouldn't do instead of.
No,
It's more in our orbit, so it's not instead of, it's an additional
Yeah.
comparative line.
I mean, and-
Line, Grafton, and
most of this data, it depends on what data item you're looking at,
Mhm.
okay? A lot of it is available at the town level, so it can be aggregated to the Upper Valley. I don't wanna sit here and say all of it is.
Sure.
But, for example, enrollment data is, some of it's at the municipal level, some of it's at the SAU level,
Mhm.
which gets screwy around here because of, some of it's cross state.
Across the,
So the answer is some, for sure.
Yeah, and from my point of view, that's not critical. You were tasked, we asked you to do Grafton County, and
Actually, we asked for comparable New Hampshire towns.
I thought there was, that Grafton County was specifically mentioned.
We've been, the
Yeah.
only thing I would say, just being a little bit
I want to be
thin-skinned,
jealous of your time too, so.
yeah, is that I've been dealing with Grafton County even during our interview, as I remember.
That's what I,
And had it been from the beginning, Russ, we want you to do.
yeah, I think
regional
Grafton
planning.
County was communicated to you consistently. So if you can give us additional information, from my point of view, that'd be great. The more information, the better. But
Right.
I understand why it's Grafton County.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't think it'll change
I don't
anything
either.
about.
I think it's pretty minor.
you know, Lebanon's in both, right?
Yes.
So Lebanon drives a lot of the numbers because of it's the mass of valuation, the mass of population, the mass of housing. Yeah, I don't think, it wouldn't change my, put it this way, it wouldn't change the conclusions of the study, which is,
Right.
you know, you have a lot of inertia in your fiscal system, basically, is one way of saying it.
Yeah, right.
You know, you want good schools and you pay for them.
Right.
You have high values because you have good schools,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, you're an attractive place to
It
live.
was the best of times and the worst of times.
Yeah, yeah, it could be a lot worse.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a time frame, 10 days.
Yes.
We have a meeting to resolve two things.
Right, and
Okay.
so we'll go about setting up the meeting like we did this.
Like we normally do,
Okay.
okay?
I have
And-
a
and
question
you-
sometime.
And you'll be sending that to Chris, and then
Correct.
Chris, you'll be sending it.
David, just distribute.
Okay.
So, contract question.
Mhm.
This is gonna really tap out this contract.
Yep.
There was additional funding that was identified for when we were talking about doing 3 forums. Is that still available to use for the forum?
No.
Okay.
So, we'll have to talk about, you know, what your bill is when we finally get the presentation,
Okay.
okay? So you should, what's it gonna do to update the presentation or the slides? And what's it gonna take for you to give the presentation?
Is it fair that we update the slides and bill you at this point, and then we can give you an estimate for the forum, which is gonna be the same estimate we gave for the earlier forum?
You can do whatever you
Okay.
want to
Yeah,
do,
okay.
and
I
we'll
think
respond to
that's
that
really-
appropriately.
I just
I'm not gonna
wanted to-
answer for the group.
All right, I wanted to share it here today, but, yeah.
Okay. Earl?
Well, maybe out of place, but I'm just listening to all this, and I'll try to get more acclimated when I get, now that most of my other problems take care. How long is this forum gonna last?
2.5 hours?
I mean, I think we went through, it took us longer to go through the presentation than it's gonna take us that night.
Right.
And then I think if you wanna hold questions, have people hear all the information, and then we can get into questions and discussion. We'll also be taking notes at the forum.
And you're gonna video it.
And you're gonna video it, so I think you could get it done within 2 hours, personally. leaving a lot of time for questions.
There'll be a lot of questions.
I'm sure there will be.
I find if my presentations go longer than 20 minutes, I get bored.
We're actually a lot easier on you guys than everybody else will be, so.
Get ready.
Sorry to hear that.
Get ready.
I don't know if that answered your question, Earl.
Well, I don't know, all I know is that when people come out for the evening for a project,
Right.
there's only so much time before they need oxygen,
Yeah.
so much time before they have to get the babysitters or whatever. If you start this thing at 7 o'clock to 9, well, I think we need to really understand how much time altogether from start to finish to make sure that the thing is sensible. The other comment in listening to this is, I question what percentage of our citizens or people coming are interested in all the data that you're talking about. I mean, really, you guys, and I can get included, have been immersed in this, and we're really wanting to know condominiums versus 20-story buildings and on and on and on. But I don't know how much a guy off the street or a gal off the street can absorb this stuff, or if it's gonna mean anything to them. I think they're coming to a meeting to find out how we're gonna control taxes, and somehow that message has to get through crystal clear. And I just wonder if we're bogging them down with too damn much information. If they would like to know how we came up with something and the information's available, that's great. But I don't know.
I think that's gonna depend upon these guys and their presentation. It's up
Yeah.
to them, it's up to them to present it in a way that is manageable by the average person walking in the door here. So-
Yeah, and I think of it a bit of a resource document for what you're talking about. In other words, going forward, we can't tell the town how to spend money or how much to spend. We can tell you, well, you know, if you grow this way, given the way you are today, what's the bottom line impact?
I understand.
Yeah, but I hear your
I
point.
got,
We'll find out forum night.
I think we need to find out before.
Well,
that.
I think, to, what I got from their answer to your question is that the actual, going over this data and everything is gonna be pretty quick.
About 30 minutes.
And it's
Yeah.
really just
Okay.
it's really just a background for people to nail these guys, basically.
Well, I think that message is fine.
John, you just keep selling this to us.
I wanna, you'll be so happy when it's not as bad as I'm
They're
saying.
not gonna allow weapons. Is there gonna be a
No,
metal
please, no,
detector?
don't even.
No, I think it's fine that they understand there's data available to prove a point,
Okay.
or to clarify a point, I think is even better.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll just add, I think because so many of you have been involved at various stages or throughout this, if you think that there's a message that's being missed with a question you hear, you can hit us with a question that will bring it forward, so.
Okay.
Because you're also engaged.
Thank you, this has been very
Well,
efficient.
thank
Yeah.
you, I really
That's
appreciate
worth
your
coming over for.
work.
Sue, I have questions for you.
Oh, good.
Okay, can we adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Thank you. It's been,
Thanks for keeping it
from the
moving, Chris.
beginning.
Exactly. Chris is a great tester.
I know we're probably maybe, but I've enjoyed that one.
I think we'll do it via email.